Awesome. Yeah, like I was saying, Tom, we really appreciate you taking the time and everything. I know you have a lot of experience in the public sector. I was glancing at your LinkedIn today and saw that you've been with City of Columbus for over 25 years now. Is that correct?
Yes, it's actually 30.
Oh,
Okay.
it,
Okay.
Tom, is your all your experience in public sector, or were you in private sector at any point?
Yeah, I was in private sector. I actually come from a long line of entrepreneurs, so I'm the black sheep of the family because I work for the government. But when I came to the city, I was recruited by someone that worked with me at another place and asked me to come. And I told them that, maybe I would stay for a year or two, but then I would probably leave.
Hmm.
I've been assigned a lot of interesting projects. I've been able to work on a lot of digital transformations, everything from moving from the mainframe to the city's first ERP.
That's
And I've
cool.
worked in other areas in technology, database administration, system administration, and I've been able to work on a lot of interesting projects, payroll, human capital management, tax revenue, licensing and permitting, and things like that. But ERP is my home, and I have been involved with that for the bulk of my career.
Wow, that's awesome. You have a lot of knowledge under your belt, it seems like. So, I always like to ask people who have been in like one industry for such a long time, how have you kind of seen things grow and evolve within your career in the public sector specifically, obviously? Is there the kind of things that stick out to you from when you first started to where you are now, or yeah, would just like to hear about that.
Yeah, I think one thing that the reason why I gravitated to technology, even though it was in the public sector, was because one, you had the opportunity to work on things that were impactful, and and work in areas and projects that had a significant outcome. The other thing about technology that's interesting is, many of my early jobs, when I would start doing the work, and within a few months, I'd say I can't see myself doing this the rest of my life. And I was like a lifelong learner, and I like learning new things and picking up different types of skills. And with technology, you're kind of forced to do that, right? If you don't keep up, you become obsolete fairly quick. So
Hmm.
I enjoy what I do, and I've been given the opportunity to work on things that make a difference.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, technology definitely is ever changing, and if you love to continue learning, it sounds like you've chosen the right path for yourself, and it seems like it's worked out pretty well all
And a
these
lot of
years.
people to please. I mean, you're working in a job where you've got, your what you do impacts so many people. So
Hmm.
kind of a fun payoff.
And our organization is really varied. Like, when I was working more in the procurement side and the procurement applications, like we buy everything from asphalt to zinc orthophosphate to treat the water, right?
Hmm.
We have services that we do. We have like our biggest product is we make and sell water, right? But we also do public service delivery. Like we have a health department where we have epidemiologists. We have
Yeah.
a dental clinic. We have doctors that see people that don't have insurance. We
Hmm.
have typical government compliance things like license and permitting. So the organization is so varied that the needs are great.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to do some work and generally find ways that people can do things better, they'll be open to it if we can figure out a way to make their work life better.
Hmm. Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
you
you
find?
kind of, oh, go ahead,
Yeah, you
Bobby.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say you kind of touched on procurement. That was kind of the next subject that I was gonna go into. Unless you had something to touch on there,
No,
Bobby.
I'll come back to it. Let's jump in.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, you talked about procurement. How is procurement specifically in public sector kind of different than the private sector, would you say?
Yeah, I would say the demand for openness and transparency. We're spending public money. It's collected from people involuntarily, in a sense, through taxes, right? So you want them to have confidence that you are buying things, but you're doing it in an up and up manner. So you do that through advertised procurements, but you also share who bid, who got awarded, how did the contracts come to be, and that gives people a little more confidence that we are doing things in an open and competitive nature and not just giving our brother-in-law a contract.
Mhm. Yeah, within that, can you kind of talk about sealed bidding and how you guys utilize that?
Yeah. I think one other area too is like, we need to cast the widest net, right? So the first thing that we do is we register vendors that are interested in doing business with the city, right? So we use the vendor collaboration tool in Dynamics Finance and Operations, and we collect that information ongoing. And anywhere in any given month, we will have, maybe 100 new
Wow.
businesses register. Another couple hundred will edit their contact information, submit things like a W-9. There's some compliance things that we do where we collect an application called contract compliance, and that has to be turned in every 2 years. So we do that first, and then we not only use the supplier management portion of it, but we then do sealed bidding or request for quotes, um, so that we can publish what it is that we're buying, make it publicly available, solicit these people that have registered interest in doing business with us at some point in time, to let them know about the opportunity, and then collect the response online. So that is a way for us to conduct business open and transparently. Other areas in finance, once we've established a contract to buy things that are going to be repetitive in nature, like um, office supplies, right, or things that we buy all the time, we'll bid that out over a course of time using the sealed bidding functionality. But then we'll award the contract, and then we'll use finance and operations to manage that through purchase agreements, through general budget reservations, and then also the catalog features in finance.
Is it so all that's done in other, so that process you described is done within finance and operations as well as Power Platform to some degree where you're putting it on the website and collecting some of that information?
Yeah, yeah. So in finance and operations, the purchase agreements, it records like the basic contract information. Who's the vendor? What procurement category does it cover? When does the contract expire, right? General budget reservations are ways in government for us to earmark or hold funds for a specific purpose. And then we can associate those with those purchase agreements. So we can tie the contractual portion with the funding portion, because in government, budgets are really, really important, and having approval to use your budget is really important.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, we've configured the catalogs. We can punch out, we could shop the contracts for the approved items. We can pull back those allowed contract items in the catalog into the shopping cart, check out of the shopping cart, put it back in the requisition, and it'll be associated with the purchase agreement for that catalog. And then they can add that funding component, the general budget reservation. And what's good about that is now you know as a procurement organization that how I'm buying it was approved, the catalog was approved, and I'm buying approved items.
Yeah.
And how I'm paying for it was already approved for that purpose. So that way we can give people kind of an expedited checkout, right?
Hmm.
Once they get all that back in the requisition, they submit that to workflow. The workflow evaluates it, and if it's a catalog purchase with the funding already approved from an active purchase agreement, in 5 minutes they can get a purchase order and confirmed, and then they'll have it, and the order will go to the supplier, right? So it expedites the actual purchases.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do use Power Platform for the public-facing side of it, so you don't need a login to come in and see what it is we're buying. We have a Power page that we created where you can come and you can search all our open requisitions, you can search our past requisitions, and you
And
can
this is a
see.
citizen can do that to say, hey, I want to see what Tom's up to over there at the city of Columbus. They can go in and search and see what people are buying.
Yes, yes. And then if you're interested, if you're a vendor, then you can register and log in. And we've got a fairly quick login registration process. You just need to tell us who you are. You need to give us a piece of information that you would give us like on a W-9. Like what is your tax ID number, so that we can see if you already have an account with us and match
Yeah.
it or create a new one for you. and what it is that you sell, and tell us what procurement categories, and you are generally approved, and everything happens during that registration period right away, and then you can transition right over to a bid if you see it. So that's something different than public versus private as well, is that we're pretty open and let almost anybody register, whereas a private organization, they're trying to cull and consolidate the
I,
number of
I
vendors
was
that
going to
they
ask,
deal with.
you get 100 new a month. Are you going back and deprecating some of those as they're inactive for a certain number of period, or do you care and just keep them loaded in?
No, we've created some batch jobs that will go back and they will look and see if we've had any contact with them over a period of time, around 2 years.
Yeah,
So if you haven't logged in, if you haven't bid, if you haven't submitted any new paperwork to us, then we'll inactivate your account after 2 years. So to help us manage it, but we
yeah.
have over at any given time we may have about 11,000 vendors that are active in the portal.
Wow. Yeah, I think we could talk. There's a lot of functionality that public sector, like you said, things that they have to deal with that isn't typical in an ERP system. One that comes to mind is like grant management is another kind of very unique thing for public sector. How do you all handle that within the system?
Um, grant management, and there's a difference between like grant accounting and grant management, right? So within Dynamics, we keep as one of our financial dimensions is the grant number, right? And that allows us to associate it with any of the source documents that are in the system, requisitions in
Hmm?
progress, purchase orders that have been issued, invoices that have been paid, right? And we can pull a lot of information out of our trial balance just based off of the grant number itself, right? We also use project accounting to a very small extent. That's where you keep some of the grant information. Who is the grantor? Is it a federal, state, or private grant? Is there a city match required? So some grantors say, we'll give you money, but you got to put some city money
Hmm.
with it. And then we take that grant information and we're required to do some financial reporting every year. We do an annual comprehensive financial report, lovingly referred to as the ACFR. And it is our certified statements. So if you were a private sector company, you might have Sarbanes-Oxley if you're publicly traded. On our side, we have the Government Accounting Standards Board, and they set the procedures. And then we have in Ohio, the state auditor audits every government once a year,
Hmm.
or they will hire an independent third-party auditor to do that audit for them. So every year our books are checked and audited. Our IT controls are also reviewed, and so that they can believe that the numbers that are on the reports that come from the system, like Dynamics, are believable.
Yeah.
Right. So all that's from a financial accounting and reporting perspective. D365 doesn't have a true grants management model. I wish it did. But what I mean by grants management are the practices and processes that track from award to impact. So you might have a full grant life cycle where you're tracking when you applied for the grant. What's the status of the award? What are the terms of the grant?
Hmm.
After you get the award and you start spending the money, there's oversight site and compliance reporting that you have to do. Most of that is handled outside of D365 Finance because it's more of a management versus an accounting function.
Right on.
So these are often handled in either a third-party product, or they could be built by your partners in customer engagement, for example. So a lot of things I just described are tracking dates when things are due, right? Attaching information about particular grants. And then on the flip side of it too, sometimes we're not the recipient of the grant. We are actually the awarder of the grant, right? We have city funds, or we have what they call, pass-through funds from other places where we're administering the grant, and we're giving the money to somebody else to do the work.
Yeah.
And so we have to manage the applicants. We have to communicate with the recipients, and there are ways to do that. There's a grant management accelerator that Microsoft does that you can build a Power App portal to do that, or like I said, a lot of people have third-party
Hmm.
products.
Hmm. Is grant accounting something that you can do within D365? Because that's separate from grant management, correct?
Yeah, so the grant accounting is why we tie the financial dimension to. So one really great thing about Dynamics Finance is it has what they call like a flexible chart of accounts, right? You only need a main account, right? For your GL and what your type of stuff is. And then everything else, you define what your chart of accounts is and what your financial dimensions you want to track. So we track up to 5 levels in our organization. We track, it's very important in government. You have to do fund accounting. So we have to track the source of the funds. So you'll have, where did we get the money? Because most of the time, if you can picture it, the money has a string attached to it, and you have to account for it from the moment you receive it until you disperse it.
Yeah.
So we do that grant accounting by making a financial dimension grant, right? And it's tied to places in the organization. It's tied to and overall, when you do your overall expenditures, we have 11 primary dimensions. So 5 are organizational, 3 are funding related. And then we have a thing called programs. So we can, what are we doing as far as achieving certain strategic priorities in the city? We have a thing called object class so that we can categorize the expense. Like, is it a personnel expense? Is it materials and supplies? Is it services? Is it a capital expenditure? And then we also have the main account, which is the heart and soul of Dynamics, which is, okay, you spend it in materials and supplies. Well, is that office supplies or is that, fuel or things like that? So it gets at another level of categorization.
Hmm. Very cool. Have you always done work in D365 or have you used other ERPs within your time?
Well, we talked about how long I've been with the city. So I was on the first project that moved the city from a mainframe
Hmm.
that was built by a company called KPMG. And we moved from the mainframe to a client server application also built by KPMG and used by a number of government entities at the time. That worked great for us. It was very good at government accounting. It did some of the procurement and budgeting functions. But over time, KPMG sold it to a software company. They improved the software. The software company then sold it to a private equity firm who sold it to another private equity firm. So after about 17 years, the product hadn't seen a real facelift for a while. So the user interface was old. The platform was starting to go out of support. So we went out for an RFP because we're government and we have to, do things open and transparently and competitively. And we looked at a variety of solutions. And Microsoft came in with a compelling offer for Dynamics AX 2012 at the time. Some of the AX 2012 had some government features, but it didn't have all of them. So if you ever read like how to buy ERP, they tell you never trust the software manufacturer if they tell you they're going to make it for you, or unless they've already got it made. But Microsoft committed to building some functionality. Our partner at the time committed to building some functionality, and the city of Columbus committed to helping them do that. So a lot of the features that we see standard today in Dynamics 365 were built and tested at the city of Columbus.
Right on.
The city of Redmond also participated in that program to another extent. But a lot of the areas like sealed bidding, we were the guinea pig and we were the first ones to implement it in the public sector.
Was Dawn Johnson there? Did you work with her? Was she at the city of Redmond?
Yeah, she was there. She was project manager. We worked with some of their finance folks. I would say they were doing more in the budget planning
Hmm.
portion. The city of Redmond did 2 years worth of budgeting at a time.
Hmm.
We can barely get 1 year's worth of budget done. But we use the budget planning module. We use the forecast position model it's one of the largest expenses to figure out what it is we're going to be paying people the next year. We use that, and when you're done with the planning, it can port over into the budget control portion of the system.
Hmm. So you guys were kind of like the pioneers of the public sector with Dynamics. It kind of sounds like just kind of
Yeah, so we We were on the cutting edge, sometimes the bleeding edge. We put a lot of our heart and soul into it, spent a lot of time testing it, and then one of the user groups, the Microsoft came to us and said, "Hey, we've had D365 out for a year or two, but we're not seeing any adoption in the public sector. And then why aren't you moving?" And we were basically like, "Well, you baseline some stuff, but then we have a lot of property that was third party created by our partner, and then we have some customizations in the city of Columbus, and many of those things are common to the public sector. So we would have to spend a lot of money to refactor all that code." And Microsoft listened, and they came back and said they were going to purchase the IP off of the partner and baseline it into D365. And we gave them our intellectual property that we owned. And so they took about 56 custom or IP related features from the city of Columbus, and they baselined that into D365 finance and operations for the public sector. So they moved that in, and then we moved from AX 2012 to F&O in 2021.
That's awesome, man. I didn't realize that's a great history lesson for public sector. I mean, that's the way it happens too, just in general. Like, supply chain stuff's coming from Microsoft, when they see a good property, a good intellectual, and they've got a compelling reason, they'll just pull it in. Why reinvent the wheel when you've got somebody out there that's already done it, that's really successful with it and sold it out into the world? So happens a lot. Didn't know just to the extent at what you guys had done over at Columbus to build that portion out for folks all around. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think there were about a total of 70 to 80 public sector features, right? I just took credit for the ones we did, but we all met as a user group, public sector user group. We all met together. We met with the Microsoft product managers. We all brought in some of the examples of things that we had done custom at our own organizations, and something as simple as an encumbrance report, which is part of fund accounting. So basically, when you commit to do something like a purchase order or these general budget reservations, we have to reserve the money and not allow it to be used for anything else. And we also have to promise that we have the cash on hand to pay for it. So that's called an encumbrance. There was not a common encumbrance inquiry or report. So everybody had built their own. But we stood them all up and we showed everybody what the product managers at Microsoft, and showed them what we built. And almost all the columns were identical. Almost all the columns were in the same order. Yeah. Right. So that's, I think, the light bulb aha moment where Microsoft realized that there are some things that are common across the board in at least North America, that they could build to improve the product. So they did. And I give them all the credit for listening and taking something. And I think it's helped with adoption. Yeah. So since then, they've onboarded new public sector customers directly into D365. And they've also gotten several of the ones that were AX 2012 customers. They migrated when we migrated, or after we migrated.
That's really cool. Awesome. Well, I think that you guys kind of covered all of the questions that I had for you today. Unless, Tom, was there anything that you kind of wanted to chat about before? Or Bobby, it looks like you.
Yeah, I've got something. I want to ask Tom what he's doing with this crazy kid called AI. Like, how is AI, being, you don't have to go deep, but just, maybe a high level view at what the city of Columbus is doing to govern and control the security around, individual use of AI, or, also even how you're starting to incorporate it.
Yeah, well, the one thing, Microsoft has invested billions of dollars into AI, right? And everything. There's a Copilot for everything in every Microsoft products, and Dynamics is not any different. So there are some pre-configured, generative AI types of summaries in Dynamics. Like, you can go to workflow, and it will read through all the work items and everything and all the path, and it will come and it'll bubble up what's important and everything into a summary. You can go to a vendor and it'll tell you how many purchase orders they have, how many invoices have been paid this year, those types of things. You can go to a purchase order and it'll tell you how much of that purchase order is, on back order, or how much has been delivered. And all that is in an AI summary. And all you have to do to turn that on is to turn on a feature, right? Or click the different features, right? So that's something where we're seeing it baked into the product right away. We're also seeing where Microsoft is either releasing agents or they have listed in the release documentation about preview agents. So things like to manage supplier communications and things like to do account reconciliations, tie-ins with your Excel add-ins. Those are all AI, and so we're playing with a lot of those as well, and looking for specific use cases where the back office will be greatly improved. They may have account reconciliations when you're trying to balance two sets of numbers. We think that that's going to give us some good impact for our users, especially when they're bringing in information from third-party sources. So we're very excited about that. The supplier communication, there's some built-in stuff already, but then there's things that you can do to piggyback onto a process after you look at something and then, oh, I need to send this out to the people that came up on the list. So we think that's going to be good. So we're really targeting back office stuff.
Right on.
With that. There is a Copilot sidecar available to anybody. It's not a public sector thing. You can build some Copilot agents yourselves in Copilot Studio, and then you can embed them. So we're looking at doing some more about improving our user experience through these Copilot agents. There's a lot of policies and rules about how we do things. So helping somebody just ask the question instead of opening a PDF and scrolling to page 9 to find their answer. How-to steps. How do I actually do these types of different processes?
Like a citizen or an internal employee?
Mostly internal, but we also are looking at adding those Copilot searches to that public page that I mentioned, so that you could find the RFQs faster. You could find the results out faster. Or we have a really extensive user guide. We have lots of videos on how to do things as a vendor, how to register, how to bid, how to find your invoice. But wouldn't it just be great if after they logged in and they could just ask the agent?
Yeah.
Or even when they register, instead of filling out a form that's kind of cold, the agent interviews you and asks the questions that are on the form, and then it fills it out for you and does it. So those are all like pilots that we want to do starting this year in AI.
That's cool just to hear it going, like just to hear there's action, because the more we hear that, the more people are getting results and then following suit. So
yeah, and I think that was the one thing that I mentioned. Microsoft's the largest software provider in the world. They're investing a lot in technologies. So our move when we left AX 2012, that was more of an on-prem, and we moved to the cloud. Our move wasn't just about moving our operations to the web, and it wasn't just about using Dynamics in the cloud. It also gave us the Power Platform. Right. So tools that we could use and extend the product without actually changing the product. Right. So I mentioned that we built the Power Apps pages for that public bidding, bid advertisement. We also built what's called a transparency portal, where we are taking data through the data factory out of Dynamics. We're putting it into a Dataverse in Azure, and then we're sharing it with the public on public pages that we built in Power Pages. Right. And we also have Power BI visualizations that we share. So those common public records requests that we get every year, people can just come to our website and they can look it up. Right. How much did you spend with this vendor? What are the purchase orders you issued, for, water treatment chemicals last year, right? So we have a lot of those there. They can find them either through the visualizations, but we also made the full data sets available. So researchers will contact us, other data aggregators will contact us, and they'll ask us for every single purchase order that we issued last year, and so rather than us fulfilling that request over and over again the year, we just can send them a PDF and says, here's how you can get that information and download it from our website. We've done a little process mining in the Power Platform, where we've looked at workflow history to find bottlenecks, explore options for improving our processes. There are Power BI visualizations that we've done, workflow or for targeted operational things, like how many purchase orders do you have where you've received things and not paid the invoice yet. where our agencies can find their information quickly, slice and dice it, and then we've built some financial information to augment the trial balance, where we have basic income statements, but also things like, revenue. We're collecting revenue. They're in these different kinds of accounting dimensions. You can slice and dice them by measures like dates or these dimensions, but you could also compare year over year, where we are compared to last year. You can't do that in the trial balance today,
Yeah.
but you can do it in the Power BI. So we've been able to use the tools that came with the product to extend and create things that are useful for our end users.
That's awesome. Again, it's always fun to hear how people are using the software in different ways and even using it. How often do we just get in and get a software going and do the same things we've always done and not really make advancements? So
Yeah, sounds like City of Columbus is definitely making those advancements from like now and for the past 20 years or whatever. So that's really cool to hear.
We try to get the most out of what we're paying for.
Yeah, as you should. One more question for you, Tom. I'm curious with your kind of passion for continuous learning. For anyone listening, do you have any recommendations for different forums that they should look into, podcasts, user groups, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I subscribe to some of the partners. They have really good blogs. So I'll hit a few of the blogs. I'm a subscriber to the Ellipse blog. Logan Consulting has a blog. There's Microsoft Learn. I spend a lot of time there. And then even there's some things provided by Microsoft that people might not even know about. So like I was talking about the Power Platform tools, they actually have things called Government Accelerator. If you just Google D365 Government Accelerator, they have some templates where you can build things for like applications for building permits or licenses or benefit or eligibility for programs. You configure what those are, and what your data points are, but they give you the building blocks to build those types of things. So definitely those are items. I'm a member of several different user groups. There's a Doug for Gov user group. So they do more than just Dynamics Finance, right? They do Power Platform. They do the other Dynamics tools. There is a Dynamics Communities has a summit every year. We have a public sector day there. And it's a great place to meet people, not just in your industry, but other industries, and find out what they're doing with the product, because sometimes that sparks other ideas. And then we have our own user group that we try to meet together quarterly, virtually, 3 times a year, and then once in person at that summit where we collaborate with each other.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool to hear. There's so many resources out there for people. So, I just want to make sure they're utilizing everything that's available to
love
them.
the tip on that Government Accelerator. That's a huge one. So hopefully that gets out there and keeps getting pushed.
Yeah, and then there's guys like Bobby that I've known for a long time in the Dynamics community, and every now and again I'm like, "Hey, Bobby, have you heard of anybody doing something with this?" And he's got his pulse on a lot of the users across the United States, leading that Dynamics user groups as well. So he's a great resource.
Definitely. Our very own.
Yeah.
I'm good about 60% of the time.
No, we're like 100%. Awesome. Well, Tom, I really appreciate you once again taking the time. It's been a great discussion today. You have a lot of insight to share. I've learned a lot from you just in this conversation. So we really appreciate it. So
yeah,
thank
Tom,
you.
thanks. It's always good to see you, man. It's been a minute, but happy to hang out and talk a little bit about public sector and Dynamics. It's always fun.
Well, thanks for inviting me.